Good afternoon. This is the third video on and about the part of the Gemmeconomics in the cluster of the culture of the Gemmfiles I have been developing ever since 1991. Um, I want my audience, colleagues, friends in the business to share the very first comment I want to make here. I'm into now the ninth month experimenting in the use of videos by way of YouTube, and there will be other possible platforms from Patreon and other video programs. But what I really want to get back with the multiple platform that I have, from conscientizations now to the pedagogy of the conscience, with the Gemmfiles, with the picture web, and plus Casella is the Latin American Silk Road, and many more. They're all basically integrated. But first and foremost, I hope the audience can share the idea that we are now back to the old classical, the Greek model, when speakers speak or orators speak and the scribers marking it down. In the use of this technology under the cultural sphere of AI, and with the availability of the present system of YouTube, this is basically the very first events. And with the added tools where most of my graphic description and the sequence of the graphics were all involved or listed in the www.paulyih.ai. Paul Yih written as PULYIH.ai / with the rest of the program. And I hope between now and the end of the year, we will be improving much more in the lecture series, where the side screen or part of the screen will be used to show more all the configurations or graphics that I have put on hundreds in Canva. A picture tells 1,000 words, and this is the very beginning. My talk about our baby steps into the YouTube video and face-to-face, and we'll continue on this third segment and talking about where we are now, what and why this open attitude, and speaking of an industry where we have spent 45 years of time, and also since I have started the system gradually forming the Gemmfile system since 1991. Because without the technology we have today, and again highlighting, the data is wonderful. What hosting the data, the cloud computing will allow we all in the future sharing our cloud, be that Gemmfile and all its 9 platforms plus others. And I'm looking forward in the future if the cloud computing can be built in Brazil. Why Brazil? Okay. Number one, we have very little severe weather situations, never had earthquake, and Brazil in the up and coming years will be of an important player, be that in BRICS or in the country of the southern zones, or, so to speak. I'm not articulating with the terminology now, being the world is starting to diversify in a much more grandiose way. Number one, I would talk about some of the events by the request of my friends, colleagues. They want to talk about how we started as a small, tiny micro enterprise to become a medium-sized micro still, but the macro, the dimensionality, what is up and coming in the coming years, are all the platforms and all the infrastructures that we are doing now. As I have stated before, data now can be captured. I started with spreadsheets, but there's not enough hosting images, pictures, measurements, be the stones are 2 millimeter by 5, 3 by 4, and all the way to the massive size of the geos of the amethyst alone. So I started with the $1 per carat cost amethyst, which had given me a huge market penetration into Asia, into North America. And then that's how things can be starting very humble, very humble to effect. And then in the arrangement that I have from the $1 per carat amethyst, of course, to the top color grades from the Uruguay, that ranging from $20 to $30 per carat. And we faced with other intrusive and unethical practices when the Uruguayan amethyst started, and then Japan coming up with the man-made quartz, looks like bricks and bricks. When the Uruguayan amethyst, when I can achieve a stone like 9 to 10 carats, it costs me basically at $25 to $30 per gram. So take it the 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, 1 gram, 5 carats. So if you cost you $50,000, $30,000 per gram, that is $30 per carat. But in that part of the intrusion of the market penetrating by unethical means. Okay, when people, especially someone close to my family, when I was selling the good label called Imperial Uruguayana Amethyst from the region of Artigas, the town by the border of Brazil in Uruguay, and Asia already producing the man-made quartz from Japan with basically $800 per kilogram. So it's about 8 cents per carat versus because the brick size, they can cut larger stones and emulating between 6 and 7 carats, which was very rare for the dark colored amethyst from Uruguay. We not only talk about success, we talk about failure. Even when we're starting here and there, you get somebody come in the sideline and side swipe you. When I was handling my 50,000 carats amethyst at $5 a carat, $250,000, recovering all my first show in Hong Kong. Well, somebody on the sideline watching, engaging what I was doing, and eventually this kind of aspiring is normal now, and trying to find their own way to come back to Brazil and buy the stone that I was contracted for and send it to Hong Kong. But there'll be another story which makes it wonderful. Because in my time, at that particular time and point here in Lake Geneva, I have become very good friends with Gary Gygax. For those who does not know, at that time in the part of the 80s, Gary Gygax was the creator of the game called Dungeons and Dragons. And together we have also the exposure jointly in Hollywood. We share the mansion once owned by Richard Harris up and down and near the Sunset Strip. And then we have our meeting with Lorimar, who wanted to take my idea of the game along with Gary, called the Gem Hunter. Okay, because the Gem Hunter is basically a almost like a espionage novel, where a person like me, by the access to the many history events from the gold the Japanese had captured in the entire Asia during Second World War, they melt down all the gold, the made Buddha, from Manchuria to Mongolia from part of Tibet all the way down to to the Malaysian or the Indochina region. And the gold they have stolen so much, in part of the gold, in fact, the English novelists have written about that, that part of the gold was eventually become a settlement. When the gold totally ended up in the hands of, in the Philippines, by the Marcos family. And by not executing the two sons of the Japanese emperor, there was the arrangement. Again, it may sound as a kind of mystery, but there will be, in today's, the way I'm using ChatGPT, much of this going back scouting of events can be found and rearticulating. But anyway, part of the goal remain in the Philippines in the joint hands with the Americans, and the other half of the goal have gone into Tokyo. But when the goal, before they get into Tokyo, were sunk in the harbor in Tokyo Bay area. Now that's just one story. In the movie, when we were talking, when Lorimer trying to tell you, Paul, you have 24 hours, 24/7, and using the toll-free number, we'll take that into the program to produce not movie, but basically it's another 007 kind of a kind of recuperating of old wealth from the fictional ruby mines in Thailand, in Burma, in Afghanistan, and the emeralds in the region, plus jade. And that alone, we can make the Indo-Chinese region with the jungle and whatnot. The story can be produced, remade, and one of the Gem Hunter will become also a board game. And I have since trademarked the Gem card, where we could have used to order other gambling houses. Imagine you played a deck of cards instead of the 13 cards with the two colors, black and red. We can use every single gemstones in all the forms and shapes and producing the sorted cards. At that time in point, we were trying to make these cards to give to the D&D players, where the players can take off another venture by the way to use the multiple dyes, the multiple color, and what color can enrich or enhancing when they're losing their blood supply. I have never sat down with the D&D games. I admire the story of the West, the Middle Earth by Tolkien, and this other story. I loved it because when I'm looking at the youngsters as a educator with my counseling background, I see the tremendous amount of imagination and the richness and how they handle new words, vocabulary, and the way they structure their sentences. And for me, when I was with Gary Gygax, with all the conventions and all the shows, we were exhibiting along with the color stones in trying to use the color, make it available. We have amethyst that cost me 20 cents, 30 cents. I even sell it at cost just to get the youngsters interested. So you were all preparing for the game called Gem Hunter. However, when in Gary Gygax's work and the dispute, okay, they have their industry dispute, they have the partnership dispute and whatnot, and went toward the end when Lorraine Williams had a hostile to take over of the TSR company, and our intellectual properties, spoken, recorded, the Gem Hunter, were also taken away. Now I might be able to revise it, revitalize it, but I have seen it using another term called Gem Explorer, which you will find in the GGMBA and the platform in Facebook. Because thinking, imagination can never stop. From the storylines about the recuperating of wealth, the Second World War, or the different deposits. One of my story I have created is basically back to Brazil, and we're still looking for who is the villain here. we're going to target what? The Russians, the Chinese, the Japanese, and Hollywood have their funny ways to demonize anyone. Okay, I'm not sure the world agreed if the U.S. won the war in Vietnam, but Rambo sure told us, or and other American movies, the Green Beret, that Americans actually never lost any war by the Hollywood standard. But anyway, on part of the Gem Hunter, now Gem Explorer story, some of you in the audience can take it upon yourself. We can be creating the very short story movie that I was traveling around the world, got back to Brazil, and I was wondering, offering my minerals to China. They were kind of cold and not so warm, but all of a sudden everybody's starting to become very interested in what I do and what I had proposed with the events in Brazil, citing the mica before the war is part of the strategic minerals, the crystals, and then in the mineral, now we're moving into the semi-precious with the tourmalines deposited on the pigmentite mines. By the same mine concept, we have also the greatest deposit with uranium. Well, that was 20 years ago. The uranium becomes a very easy to access by us. And where I find out with our neighbors and us in Brazil, if you go to the mining regions, do you know Paul Yi? Most people don't. But if you say, do you know Paulo Chinês or Paul the Chinese? Basically, well, yes, I'm the one in the last 45 years. I'm one of the few or notable ethnic Chinese in the region. And then they would know me. So by the same token, we have people called Alemão, if they're white. And by the way, the language in Brazil anyway, when we call you gringo, does not mean calling your name as a white. Gringo is basically mean white folks, Southerners, the gauchos and whatnot. But in that context, that in my story make up that we have somebody called o Alemão, but that Alemão happened to be ethnic Russian or Ukrainian, which were quite a bit of the immigrants in Brazil. And then they were actually guarding very close between their mine and our mining operation in a bluff, in a high cliff, in a mountainous region, jungle. So all the story, the boa constrictors, the big snakes, our big, the Brazilian snakes, onça animals, you can all play into. You can play Tarzan, you can play, except don't put chimpanzee or giraffe into the Brazilian scenery. But in that setup, the mine had the Chinese attention, proposing joint venture, and then I traveled to Singapore. I almost got like a 007, I almost got knocked over with all the receptions, a wonderful group, but end up came very close. But that's because the Alemão that I call the German turned out to be Russian. Or can be Ukraine, or can be Georgia. Doesn't matter, depending on how the script. But anyway, they have decided to take action to have my family. I'm acting like I'm the son of the older mining groups, and to have me removed so they can already lay out the cash to purchase by the current administration, not owner, but the operators of the mines. Well, the story to come very short, because I have my buddy, childhood buddy, he's a mulatto, black, and then we are coming to a little bit like the movie Rambo. We come in the last minute, the last straw, that we were being hunted down to be executed so they can take over the mine. But as we slip into the jungle, we were hiding out in the different pockets. But where we come into where the uranium deposit is up to about 5,000-10,000 feet, which is a ledge with the pocket, it's a vacuum in the pocket. And we have decided at this time and moment, we want to protect this mine, not be getting in the hand of the wrong people. We know in a slab, and on top of it, just so happened It was like a big rock with a indent where the water, we all know the water will fill in from upstream just to the little particular rock region. But the geological formation of that rock is very fragile. By the weight of the water in that particular time, during the month of January, December, when that water is waiting on that rock, if we can find some way to blow up that slab pool, the entire water can run into this particular pocket of the mine that can bury with all the muds and whatnot, can be hold everybody back based on the terrain for another 10 to 15 years. So that's exactly what we have done. We found the old dynamites that were left there for, during the Second World War by the American Army Corps of Engineers. We sampled this idea, put the dynamite or blow it up. Well, guess what? Lorimer loved it. All the people listening to the story. However, luck is luck. Dairy was booming. I was doing fantastic in my business. So the gem hunter story never really got to any place. And most unfortunately, when his hostile partner took over, Lorraine Williams, and took over the name, the Gem Explorer, Gem Hunter. So as I said, the content that I have created after the situation is still with me. So even in here, for those who are interested to be with the gem card, why am I so open? Because I'm basically putting the entire Gemmfiles now directly linked to the foundation called the Educational Foundation Development Corporation. What I envisioning is to see every single city, town, village, schools, instead of begging for funding, and instead of this bunch old geezers only will give when they accumulate money, I think giving can become dynamic. So I have every intention to build a Gemmfile system to service a market between 600 to 800 billion. Okay, with the potential earning of 0.5% or 1%, that's still $8 billion a year. And how much is $8 billion to be serviced to the global community? Let's take Gaza for one. Let's take Palestine for another one. Okay, so what I'm imagining to have the infrastructure built not just for us, but for every small town, every village in Africa. Okay, they can be taught, and the system of the foundations can be passed on to them. And as I said yesterday, the most important part of it is the blockchain system, where every communication, every transaction, every penny being given will have be a full blockchain locked-in system that we know that money had gone from this one stone or one jewelry sales, the percentage was given, taken out, given to that entity, and be that entity in the midst of the Congo for one particular organization. And from that organization, we have an event, maybe just take a school bus of 50 kids into a city to visit a museum or visit any kind of industrial sites. And this is where I feel totally comfortable about converting the system of the Gemmfiles, and hopefully in the next 10 years, if 20-30% increase, that can go into $1 trillion a year. And most important thing of all is the 4 T's I talk about: total transparency, you need total integrity, you had to be totally efficient with all the data count, and ultimately the total accountability. Okay, our industry have our days Alibaba to the days of the blue diamond being recut. All diamonds stolen can be repolished, reshaped, recut. But with today's technology, we can have any one stone, once cut to the one size and shape, the internal GPS, the matrix. Remember, diamond is being judged at the 10 power magnification. Any stone you magnify higher, we are actually looking for the inclusion. Every stone you can see at 10 power, 20 power, 30 power, 100 power, and you can take one of the magnification, locked it in to show the deposit, the bubbles, the fissures, and the silk, you call it, the crystal formation. Another point is, as I'm putting this into the bits and pieces of my professional experience, during the time when we were polishing amethyst in Brazil, we also were polishing the aquamarine. And then when it comes to the topaz, our cutting got mixed in with the topaz, with the beryllium of the aquamarine, and with the other trace minerals from the topaz. That is becoming super element that can cause the longest delay of irradiation. Now we talk about irradiation now being done like Columbia, Missouri, University of Missouri, with using the nuclear reactor to do the treatment. We have that done in Sweden. I personally, with my partner team Zimmerman, we're doing in Buxal, and eventually China and every place else. And because of the trace minerals, it will have a delay of the release. Some of the topaz, economically, you can stay on the irradiation lab up to 3, 4, 5 years. So what happened here? In that process, what we have find out another way to determine what is in the minerals. Well, we already have an idea that in the future, there will be a huge database. If you want to know, for example, American government talking about, we don't handle blood diamonds from Congo or from wherever, but there's no real verification process, and the verification process is pretty costly. What we have done in USP, Universidade de São Paulo, with a couple of friends, we have made the attempt to have all stones pulverized. When in powder form, we take the stone down to a temperature to minus 2000 degrees or more. I'm not giving all the specific as a scientist, but by the freezing of the stone in the powder, we can look at the trace minerals, which one is one at the most contaminant that will cause the topaz to have such a residue and delay of the release. Now, can you imagine if we can have every single stone giving a region? I don't care. In Brazil, we can talk about tourmalines from Michael Coconda. We have stone like now Paraíba. We have stone coming from another town. Whatever name and town, you have the stone pulverized. You have a characteristics of the components of the stone. And this will be a total gem map that we can have on our hands. Almost every country, every university, and by the technology today, we can produce in very low cost. And every gem laboratory can have a pulverized stone reading. Now, I'll give you the federal government's another input. You can go to in the 50 states and just do your lottery, pick one jeweler in the retail shop and confiscate one diamond. It's up to you. You want into 25 points, quarter of a carat, half a carat, 1 carat. Take that stone. They have to follow who sold the diamond to you, the invoice, but they accompany the track and trace of the supplier. If you bought it from New York, a diamond company from New York, the diamond company from New York will produce the paperwork. If they come in from Belgium, is that a Russian origin? Is it a South African origin, or Brazil, or Venezuela, or Colombia? Now that we know many countries do produce diamonds. Well, that process, it found that diamond is coming from the blood diamond region, and then the retail jeweler who suffered the penalty along with the supply chain. It's almost like going back what we have now in blockchain. If in a blockchain system, we could have prevented many of the false alarms or finger pointing or false alarms, and let many less credulous people taking advantage of the industry and people. So what I'm highlighting, the many questionable practices in our trade can be dealt with most diligent manner, and we have the available tools today. As technology advances, they become lower and lower cost. This kind of a compliance will do well for the industry. Again, the 4Ts. If you have transparency, you have accountability, you have efficiency, and follow up by the integrity. And I think this entire spectrum, from the day, as I said, from the day of Alibaba, and all the basic connotation about thieving and deceptive practice with the trade, will gradually be fading away, and also be impacted by the current status of the man-made synthetic diamonds, as this is now happening in China. Is presenting a threat to the industry. And let me just point out another one. I'm not here saying in favor of one or the bad about the other. In my time, spending time in the industry, yes, oftentimes we have some idle times when I'm handling my distribution and sales to Thailand with a big amount of amethyst, citrine, rough cut stones supply. I usually have a week to 10 days. And I got to meet the family of the whole family, known for one of the Thai exchange I deeply admired, in a city where the sellers can go directly to the buyer, and the whole family play the middle. Now, from the business competitive point of view, whoever creating a system to facilitating the buyer and the seller, and of course, they have taken the tap advantage. But in a way, that is making the market going through much smoother. They can play the banker, they can play the escrow. In other words, the buyer likes the stone from Japan, and the seller both agree, but the Japan doesn't have the money. The whole family can say, okay, this stone physically, transparent back, sealed with a paper, sign on it, with the vendor or the buyer to be both. There's another guarantee that stone have not been switched, especially when you have hundreds and hundreds of diamonds in the similar sizes, from 1 carat to 10 carat, whatever the language we speak. But what I'm trying to showing is that I'm watching the active intelligence that coming up, upgrading, improving the industry, accountability, the club members. In the U.S., you have the GIA, you have the AGTA, American Gem Trade Association, do their shows in Tucson, in the great hotels in Tucson. Then you have the European ICA, then you have the Asians, and China's also coming up very gradually with the organization. When you're having an organization, and then you have to have a common focused value and how to evaluate your product plus your membership. I never forgot one time I sat in the middle of the meeting. This is in Switzerland, and I don't want to mention names to cause any kind of trouble. There were most vendors selling Colombian diamonds, and by the way, nobody knows about this. In Brazil, we have over 400 500 mines of emerald. Do we have the color and the size matching to Chivor? Maybe not, the known mines in Colombia, but we do have diamonds that are very much compatible in a commercial, even the upper up to 80 percentiles. The Brazilian emeralds or the emerald from Zimbabwe, from Zambia, and from other part of the world, are from the Himalayas in the Afghan region. But what I'm trying to come to tell you is, I found this group of business people sometimes very much flawed by their own personal greed or power. The Emerald Group trying to come to a conclusion that one of the process, because the forming of the emerald is also as a barrel, they have many surface porosity, and by the same token, oiling is acceptable. So all the terminology, but you cannot oil it with any kind of a color agent. But the subject matter got into this part, which is a huge part in the business of the corundum. The corundum is a mineral that holds all the sapphires, yellow, green, blue, you can name it. But most people know blue corundum as sapphires. And then the red is ruby. In the color determination is a very touchy aspect of it, because the Japanese do not buy pink, or based on my interpretation, married women, they want a pigeon blood ruby, because pink is basically separating women to a single woman of that sorts. And I know by saying what I'm saying, there will be other people adding to the future input, because life is an open book. This video is eventually coming totally 100% in text. People can insert to the text and say, Paul, this point is my point of view, or my counter argument, or my critique, but different color. This is how I'm thinking about the future of the videos. Other than we are talking, it can come out all in prints, in all languages. So what I'm trying to say in this particular meeting, I was just very close lips. It's not my view of ruby, but my uncle, I call him uncle, used to call the company called 5 Ocean Gems in New York, with the headquarters in Japan, and then with other offices in Hong Kong and the worldwide. They're very interesting, very successful, high volume, fine gems in the industry. Mostly they use their stone auction in Sotheby's and other global gemstone auctions. But this particular incident about the ruby argument, it really got me 100% pissed off. When one of the vendors trying to raise the issue, he talked about color agent into the stones by the cavity or porosity. And one of the comment was, if you're using a color agent into the closing of the fracture, some of the fracture will cause the stone, almost look flawed. But with the depending on where you see the stone, when that is covered by a certain kind of oil base, but using a color agent, you will make the stone look much better. I'm not disagreeing. But what I have come to total disagreement when this was presented by one of the major sellers of ruby. And his comment was, in the use of the agent, again, color agent, to have treated this ruby and seal it by heat, by expansion, by contraction, and then polishing. If this stone cannot be detected under 10 power, the stone should have a go for a natural stone. I just raised my hand right there and then. I said, what if we are all surgeons? If we look at the inclusion, symptomatically, it's a cancer. I know it's not. It's a different story. If you can cover that cancer, will you tell your client that you're free to go? I think it is always the question of ethics. In my 45 years, I have seen it all. Many of the fixed stones got doublé, a layer of very thin aquamarine covered with a white quartz, faceted, looking the whole stone is blue. And even oftentimes, we dealers can cut on the game and find out, whoa, how come this stone is so beautiful and so inexpensive? Well, the more sophisticated can cut a piece of aquamarine and sandwich it, white beryl. When you put a refractive index, yes, this is aquamarine. Well, I often have bought a couple of stones like that and mounted it in my store. But I'm not selling. I'm just telling people this is what a doublé, a sandwiched aquamarine. And I bought dyed or treated jade. It's still very confusing from A grade to B grade and whatnot. I have bought jades out of people's hands from local governments, digging out from the temple columns built with wood. And during the time of chaos in China, be that of the Cultural Revolution or Great Leap Forward, and this period, the affluent people hollow out the column, some part, bury their jade, cover it up with wood dust, paint it back to the columns. And I have a handful, about 6 or 8 pieces, which had commanded great prices. Basically, this group of the village people consigned to me to sell, and eventually the money go back to them. Done it totally ethically between China and Hong Kong. I said, we bring it to Hong Kong, we put the document, picture, consignment, agreement, we do it all legally, and it was done. So what I'm trying to say, there are so many discrepancies in our world because there's nobody is that particular body become the authority of our trade. I think we are still struggling, but we are much better than before because the transparency, the open market, the comments. So what I'm trying to tell you, if we can gradually put our stones, as I said yesterday, to make it very simple. You have the stones, you can put into a picture, you have the measurement, you have the weight. Oh, you have certificate? Great. The stone have been sold before. Everything that happened to the one stone or the piece of jewelry with all this activity fully documented. Today we can. Instead of a lab certified, in Brazil, you can take it to the cartório. That my signature, my name, my people is all authenticated. Okay? You can talk about the regional form to authentication, but then we need the international format also. So my open attitude about letting Gemmfiles to go public. Yes, we can take this public in Hong Kong. And that's why I talk about regional of the 5 languages. English 1.5, 1.6 billion, Chinese 1.4, Indian 1.4, Arabs 1.3, and then the Romantina, the 4 Romance languages, about 1.4. Whoever takes the franchise, and we can do it in a very open manner, what the money they plunge in per country, maybe just 10%. So 1.4 billion in China is 140 million, give and take. Oh, you don't have to take off the entire money. You just put in an escrow. And using the 140 million to starting to build and constructing the constellation I have in Gemmfile, including Gem GPT. Because the Gem GPT We allow us accelerate in a time speed and the quantum count of time. If that one stone you see from the gem board have been bought so how many times, you have an index of how they have transacted. No question about it. There will be people coming to speculating in the gem board. If a stone coming out, the biggest stone, let's say, is a 90 carat diamond. Someone come up with a 96. But your stones, your item, your piece of jewelry with the good description, okay, all the way around, all dimensions. And this is what the technology I have on hand today will also enhance the spatial web that is coming here now. So the entire piece of stone, you can turn it upside down, inside out, in all directions. You know, you can look at the behind or the of the depth of the stone. We may call it the bunda in Portuguese, like the butt of the stone. You can turn it up to your face, all directions, and you can look at it in 10 power, 20 power, 30 power, to whatever size you want. You want to identify what is the inclusion in what GPS and what size the multiplication you want to see. Technologies are here. By creating what we have in the gem tray to open the gem board, double M, you can see the daily flux. If in the entire board have not had a 5 carat ruby of the color and the quality, you have your 5 carat ruby 20 years ago. You said, well, now I feel comfortable. The stone used to cost me $80,000. I can double my money at 160. Go for it. Will somebody be coming to the market to corner the market? Of course they will. And that's why I'm talking, even as I am creating this Gemmfile system, I don't have to handle the system, and I can still be the best speculators just by handling partnership with my Brazilian team and with my global team, or the J from China, or the J die from Burma, or processing through Thailand, or the vendor of the piece sitting in Singapore, or in Zurich, or in Paris, or in Catalonia, Spain, or Lisbon, Lisboa, Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, Bogota, Panama, Miami, New York, you name it. The stone can be anywhere. But the system will have to be in place for the good of all parties, the buyer, the seller, the ultimate consumer, to have that piece. And with this kind of transparency, the government, because the free zone is no longer a big free zone. Yes, we'll have regional free zone. Okay, imagine with all the agates we have in Lajeado, Soledade, and Rio Grande do Sul. Imagine we create a zone, a wide open industry, and to invite for 5 years to 10 years time, all the Chinese can come in with their equipment, can teach all the local people how to do the carvings of the animals. Plus, we have our German guidance and orientation of the carved animal from either Oberstein, Niederwurzbach in the region of Germany, and their descendants. For one top Brazilian, by me, one of the best, the animals carved sitting on the best specimens of the turmalines is a Peter Müller from Petrópolis, nearby Rio. Why can't that be the possibility with the 5 years, the option to 10 years, to develop a industrial zone in the use of the Brazilian stones, agates, and other stone can come into the region, into this part of Brazil, to become a physical free zone, or the equipment can come in imported, but with the conditions set very, very articulately. This equipment can be duplicated in, say, 10 years time or 15 years time. In the meantime, this Chinese company can come in to create with a variety of stone. We talk about Hilgranz de Sul, but you can have all the other stones, the tourmalines, the kunzites, the Paraíba tourmaline rough, all come into, and then creating a richer body of work, and other industries in the arts and crafts relating to the gemstones and minerals. This is one idea. The idea is not have not been perfected as yet. But all the tools today electronically, and let's bear in mind what the lithium battery has already helped many of the tools in the global market. The same idea can be done in Brazil, not just with stones. With these carving tools, we can also do many of the woodwork in Brazil in all regions. For me, this matches the grand idea of Xi Jinping's alleviation of the poor. Zone by zone, area by area, with all the communications and all the taxation formula, they have to sign in, they have to abide by the local laws. But the rest of the free zone, we can open it anywhere because you track and trace by the registry, and you track and trace by their banking system. We are not here trying to tell people you get a freebie, sell what you want, you don't have to pay the government. And perhaps some of the professionals can think about helping the government at advancing themselves and also advancing the country is a good thing. We don't have all the answers, but take a look at what China had done. If we can put the global free zones in our trading spots, as I said, you have one item costs $100 and say land it in Zhuhai, China, it's going to cost you 110. You land it in Switzerland, it's going to be 120. Well, let the free zone charge their customers. Then we have already a distribution center with the Brazilian product. I'm just talking about Brazil as an example. This can be done with Bolivia. This can be done with Peru, with their beautiful stone, the lapis from Chile. We have also African nations. I'm just talking about the beautiful color stones from all around the world can be openly distributed. But we have to set up some sort of rules and regulations. And the way I set up Gemmfiles with the foundations, how much do I need to make? If the market size from 500 billion to 600 billion, 800, eventually in 10 years, 20 years, double to 1 trillion, the system will feed itself. And what is interesting, for those garimperos, or the first people that found their mines, they can find their neighbors not to be competitors, to form their already existing in Brazil. They have formed their little associations, the cooperativas, the cooperatives in Brazil, and then they can work together, or depending on the immediate you will have on your hands, the global supply and demand on the trading board. I mean, it sounds funny, sounds simple, idealistic, but that is workable. It had to be workable for the entire world system and the participants, from miners to processors to producers to manufacturers to the retail table. System that we have now called our spatial age, that the system we have, you can make every single designer's, artist participation in full with the stones in the position, how it's being set. Over the years, what had made me the most sad is that many young designers, jewelers, beautiful work, wonderful work, but they had no position but to only absorb by the larger corporations. Case in point, I found one of the best stone carving in detail in my time with the young fellow, well, my age now, Wallace Chen in Hong Kong. And when we're working with a different company in Europe, they want to buy him out, but they will pay him handsomely to carve for their products in Europe, but not to having his name. Well, Wallace kept on becoming very independent. And also, I found a little bit strange that many Chinese carvings, the beautiful carvings, would never have put their name or sign on. And I think this will be changing today. This kind of artistic expression should be allowing to have their recognition. And I repeat, one of the German influence, German himself, Peter Müller from Petropolis, from Brazil, can multiply his studio in Brazil, and his work and designs will have multiple acceptance just because not his work skills and his eyes to the specimens, minerals in Brazil. And so this is in what we are talking about, to find a collective way to make the industry that will produce good products with good results, with fair markups, with fair margin, and yet that will be part of the alleviation of the poor, not just in Brazil. This can take place in Bolivia. It can take place in Chile. It can take place also in all the regions have their own very unique stones. The amount of beautiful agates coming out of Mexico from different part of the Mexico, and the stones still coming out from El Salvador, and the jade I have witnessed from in Guatemala, but the earlier jade found in the Cancun, in the Campeche, among the Mayan cultures, they were just as beautiful as the jade we have seen in China, with some sort of a powder blue that I've never seen in Asia before. And subsequently, the amount of Afghanistan products with kunzites, rubies, sapphires, emeralds, and whatnot, and the lapis by way of Pakistan, Peshawar, coming to Bangkok. I just hope this idea of the Gemmfiles, I'm willing to open to the public. All it takes is one country. You want to set up the franchise at the starting point of 50 cents. That's okay. 1.4 billion will give me 7 billion. 10% will give me 700 million. Just to start, with just 10% to start, and the rest put in escrow. But once this get into the gear, everybody will have an open trade. And every time a product's being sold, transacted, passing on, will be a full indication and trackable by the system of blockchain. And I, once again, in this next 2 or 3, the sharing of this speak, in Portuguese we say fala, I will continue to put this is my adolescent, because starting in January I was just a baby coming into the broadcast area, and now we are into a more mature way to speak, to share the content, and hopefully by the end of this year we'll be able to supplement with live videos, with events, or I will have more participants to share more what we have now and what we can have in the coming months. So the Gemmfiles is open, and so far we're talking about is about the Gemmeconomics. In this Gemmeconomics, that will be eventually showing all the offers in and around the world, and to them with very concise manner, very specific manner, the cost the entire operation. For example, we have done in my lifetime, helped many industries, made by mistake or positively, when they're moving into Brazil in a short period of time, they have regretted what they have investing their money, their factory, and personal home and housing. We managed to help them liquidate, sold, yes, in the use of the black market dollar. This is feeling almost ashamed to speak of such, because where there is a black market dollar, that is the full practice of usury and abuse. Look at what India had done to a hidden cash one time. When you have a discrepancy about the black market exchange dollars, it's only 1 or 2%, when the official rate of the dollar in any given time in Brazil can have 10, 15, 20%. So we have to work intelligently along with human cunningness. We have to beat not just the one system, but 2 or 3 systems. But that exposure in the last 45 years can give us today a much more alert and open passages for the future global trade. I feel pity when workers going from Philippines go in the Middle East countries, and their wages had to be charged very high when they send money back home. Okay, and I hope the incoming currency of the RMB or the BRICS currency will stop this black market dollar and their abuse for the past 60, 70, maybe 100 years. I will stop now, and I will try to do one more tape. Thank you. Hope to see you soon.